Hi everyone, this is Kelly again, and when I was doing an update of the Weaver's Oracle, I read the story of Annie. That was a story that I had written and then created this painting off of, and it just got me in the bug. I have a lot of little short stories and fables, and it just kind of put me in the bug to do some illustrations or attempt to do some illustrations. And so a new one was born last night, and this one is for a short story that I wrote for my son. So if you're feeling particularly emotional, this may not be the one for you, but this time of the year is certainly something that I'm thinking a lot of. The anniversary of his passing is coming in a couple weeks. And so this is always obviously a difficult time, but so I'm trying to be proactive in that, and painting this is part of that. So I'm going to go ahead and read. I shortly, not shortly, a couple months after my son had passed away, it was in mid-December, and I wrote this in mid-February. I was feeling like, because everything had happened out of the blue, so to speak, he did have a chronic illness, he was ill, he was in palliative care, but just in terms of that moment that things started to roll was very much out of the blue, and I didn't feel, I mean, do we ever really, I think, feel as if we've had that moment to really say goodbye in the physical sense? And I was left with that feeling, and I didn't realize it, but I realized a couple months later that I was just feeling like I wasn't able to say what I wanted to say. And so I've always written fables. I've written fables when my nieces and nephews were born. Just in certain occasions, I've written little stories and little fables. It's just my way of processing. And so I wrote a story called The Box, because my son, Michael, has a story that he wrote called The Box Gnome. And so there is a box that plays prominently in there, and I kind of wanted, so I was a little bit of a play on his story in my story of him. So this is called The Box. Long ago and far away, in a woods of simple beauty, there lived a boy. At the edge of a lake, nestled into the trees, was a house that didn't say wealth, didn't say perfection, but when leaves blew around its edges, it whispered home into the wind. A porch ran along the front of the little house, with weathered steps leading down, where a path first faced the lake, then ran around behind the house, through a gate, and off down a road leading into the woods. Often, after a long day, his mother could be found on a swaying porch swing, reading one book or another, while the little boy sat on the porch building towers out of blocks. If you've ever seen a robin's egg, you've seen the color of the little boy's eyes, who, when he learned to ask why and how, he asked them incessantly. Why did the rain fall? How did the birds fly? Why was the sun yellow? How did a fish breathe underwater? One day, on his 6th birthday, he climbed out of bed, and he moved a little slowly that day, as he hadn't been feeling well, and he asked his mother if they could go for a walk. She took his hand, and they rambled through the woods while the sun peeked in and out of the canopy of leaves. Why did mushrooms look like little stools? How did the frog make that funny croaking noise? Why did the trees reach to the sky, but the snakes slip in and out in the dark brush? After a bit, they came to a little clearing, and while his mother sat against a tree reading a book that was always in her pocket, the little boy explored. There was a willow tree at the furthest end of the clearing, where a small stream didn't run or skip or even babble, but just wound its way around the rocks, shallow but steady. And under the thick branches that trailed at the edge of the water, he found a box. It was old but sturdy and secure, made of wood carved all about with leaves. Blue eyes alight with unending curiosity, he opened the box and looked inside. When his mother called for him to go, he closed the lid of the box and ran to meet her. And for a little while, and far longer than was his wont, he didn't ask why, and he didn't ask how. He walked quietly home, and when a while later his mother checked on him, trying not to appear worried, she found him bent over a piece of paper drawing giant creatures. Some had powerful legs and ridiculously small arms. Others had massive bodies and necks that towered like tree trunks, and others still were short and squat with 3 horns sticking from their massive foreheads. Why did Tyrannosaurus rex eat meat and the long necks eat grass? How fast could a velociraptor run? Where did the dinosaurs go? He asked while his crayons scribbled out picture after picture of landscapes full of long-forgotten animals that ambled across the pages in bright colors. Year after year, birthday after birthday, he went through the woods, across the clearing, and under the tree by the stream that moved steadily on, and opened the lid to that box and looked inside. A few times he tried to find the box on the day that wasn't his birthday, but it was never there. Some birthdays he skipped and ran ahead of his mother, yelling out for her to hurry. Other years he walked a little slower and had to stop and rest. But either way, he ended up back at the leaf-carved box where he could stare inside, make the trek back to the little house with his mother, then sit down at the table and draw. Over the years, the crayons gave way to pens and pencils, sometimes with color, but more often than not he reached for a pencil. Fantastical creatures flew across his paper, phoenixes and dragons, amazing mechanical creatures never yet seen, and intricate sketches of the human body. How were babies made? What happened to food after we eat it? What does our blood do? Why do my lungs hurt sometimes? As the years flowed on, steady as a stream and just as fraught with rocks and sudden drops and rises, the boy grew into a young man whose eyes never lost their wonder, whose fingers never stopped speeding across the paper, swirling lines and shades into warriors of old, fighting against distant lands, against orcs and hordes of creatures, or the clean, simple lines of a cardinal or chickadee sitting lightly on a branch. His fingers were long and elegant and held a pencil as if the why of their existence was to draw the world the way he saw it. What happens when we die? And he would draw a sunset over the lake that, though set in black and white, tricked the eye into seeing oranges and reds. How many roads lead to heaven? And he drew 100 roads winding their way to the same place around woodlands and deserts and rocky mountains. Why are some people born straight and tall and strong enough to run and never stop, and others are not? And after this last, he drew all night long, working and reworking, spending an hour, 2, 3 on eyes that looked serenely out under tousled hair, and just as the morning sun was rising, he titled the picture and climbed out of bed. "I'm going for a walk," he told his mother, and she waved to him from the porch, looking tired and worried, but smiling at the sound of his whistle winding through the woods, trailing across the clearing, and sliding away under the branches of an old willow tree, where he opened the lid of the box, carved with leaves, for the 18th time, and looked inside. Hours later, as an orange and yellow sun left a paintbrush of color across the lake as it sank behind the trees, his mother woke in a panic. She ran from his room with its walls covered in sketches to the empty porch, then down the path in the trees. She heard his whistle in every turn she took, just out of reach, saw hints of the blues of his eyes in beds of twigs nestled in low-hung branches, saw the elfish slant of his eyes and point of his chin in the shadows under the trees and the strokes of his sketches where the branches of trees reached up into the sky. She heard his laugh and a rush of birds startled out of the trees that circled the clearing when she broke through, calling his name, and his strength in the steady moving forward of the stream. Running under the tree branches of the willow that wept leaves into the water, she grabbed the top of the box and tore it open. It was empty, its old wooden sides smoothed with age, and a single drawing rested in the bottom, titled "A Small Hero with a Big Heart." Many of you have already seen this, but this is that drawing. It was a last drawing that he did, and I have video of him doing the eyes. But he was a small hero with a big heart, and he would be infinitely proud that I now do anything remotely to do with sketching or painting. He would, I'm sure he is, very proud and very astonished. And it is a joy to attempt to carry on that legacy of my hero.